being squeezed in terms of availability of water, but at the same time we have an awful lot of flood risk problems as well, particularly surface water flood risk in both counties, in both Norfolk and Suffolk. We've suffered from large-scale flooding events. So most recently was in Suffolk. We had Storm Babette, where roughly 1,000 properties across the county were flooded internally, which is beyond the scale that we had experienced up to that point. So we really are looking at both ends of the spectrum, and we want to try and find ways that we're not just focusing in on one of those problems. We want to be able to be managing both problems simultaneously with the same funding pots, with the same landowners, making the most of what we've got, really. So there are lots of different work streams that Reclaim the Rain has worked on. I don't want to give the impression that the work in schools is our bread and butter. It's not. It's something that we did in 5 of the 6 communities that we're working in. We have 6 predetermined communities that we're working across both Norfolk and Suffolk. They applied to be part of it, and it just so happened that 5 of those 6 communities had schools, either basically sort of infant nurseries, primary and secondary. We've got a bit of a cross section of them all. But because we had them there, and because we wanted to try and engage with those communities, then actually you do sort of gravitate around schools, particularly in rural areas where you might have quite limited community infrastructure. But it's been one of the most sort of rewarding work packages that we have. It's certainly been one of the most enjoyable to work on, where we've got a lot out of it, and I'm really glad that we managed to deliver it. But I just wanted to sort of start off really simple and give you an overview. So the program was called SUDS in Schools. Some people that might watch this back might not be that familiar with what SUDS means. So that would be Sustainable Drainage Systems. This is sort of like an abbreviation that sort of industries use to describe drainage characteristics which are considered to be more sustainable. So not just burying pipes underground, but trying to sort of more proactively manage water. And the Department for Education has, or are currently still running, a program called SUDS in Schools, where they're trying to target schools that have flood risk issues specifically. So, has the school been flooded internally? Has the access to that school become impossible? The kind of things that cause genuine issues for both for the staff and the students and the parents. Have they been affected, and can this approach help? We were fortunate that we bid for that funding pot. You have to put in your own contribution, so the Reclaim the Rain budget was basically 50-50 between the DFE contribution and our own. So it's not wholly covered by DFE, but it's a substantial enough contribution that it unlocks lots of investment. Our own objectives were obviously to reduce flood risk, that goes without saying, but we also wanted to create a use for that captured water, so that we're true to the Reclaim the Rain objectives, and offer learning opportunities as well. At the end of the day, it's a school, and the kids really benefited from being part of that process. And those images there are just sort of I just tried to sort of shotgun a few different things in different scales that we did. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is some of the more small scale things, but things like that picture in the bottom right hand corner, it doesn't look like much now, but actually that's roughly 90,000 pounds worth of investment in terms of the tree pits, the underground infrastructure needed to facilitate them. There's underground storage there. The whole surface needed redoing. All of those things add up. So we've got a bit of experience from quite large drainage features all the way down to something which is a bit more simple, and I'll get into them now. And when Louisa asked me about what I could talk about, she really wanted to sort of understand a bit more about the cost-effective solutions. And I think I just wanted to put something in here to try and rationalize that. And there's an uncomfortable truth about flood risk management that if you have a genuine flood risk management issue and you've repeatedly been flooding, and it's causing damage and disruption, very often the solution is not cheap, and will require some other sort of investment to try and resolve that. There's this sort of classic figure that has been bandied around by the Environment Agency for quite a while now, that each house that floods internally to a depth roughly that of the depth of the skirting boards costs roughly £30,000 to rectify, and you can imagine that a school is probably more than that. So it can be a big deal, and that's why I've wanted to put in here that it's about picking the right option. It's about, you know, horses for courses. If you have a really bad persistent problem, then you know, a couple of sort of lightweight options around the edges are not going to be the solution. If you have a persistent damaging issue in Suffolk, speak to the flood and water team at Suffolk County Council. I'm sure that Rebecca and Louisa can help connect you if that is the case. I don't know exactly what sort of audience would be dealing with. I just wanted to make that point that, you know, this has got to be pitched correctly, and make sure that we're not sort of trying to sell short what could be a need for more significant investment. That said, a lot of places that we've worked with, a lot of the schools that we've worked with currently on our own program, they don't have these you know, these torrential downpours that cause, you know, thousands of pounds of flooding each time. We're talking about more sort of nuisance issues. They're repetitive, but they're not catastrophic. And I think some of the things I'll talk about now will help with that. But first and foremost, maintenance. And I know it's a tough thing for schools. I know that those budgets get squeezed really hard, but really maintenance, particularly, you know, simple things, drains, gutters, the kind of things that make a big difference to the fabric of the building and the grounds, they've got to be kept on top of, both the existing infrastructure and anything else that gets installed. But I just wanted to give a bit of an overview of a few things that could be used. And I think the most obvious starting point is tree planting. It's a great way of increasing infiltration and evapotranspiration, particularly in areas that tend to sit wet. We've done this on almost every school that we've worked with. Almost all of them have got a little patch in the field somewhere that just sits wet forever. It might be causing an issue, and therefore banging in a couple of trees is always going to be a popular choice. It's really accessible and not very expensive. Yes, you might need some help installing them, but often that is well within the realms of possibility. There's enormous amounts of educational opportunities that come with tree planting and the presence of trees, and, you know, habitat creation and all of those things that come with it. So much so that it's almost not worth me teaching you guys how to suck eggs. Like that, it speaks for itself. It's important though to remember that you know, the trees, they obviously start small, they'll get bigger, and it's important to be conscious of not causing longer term issues, the classic ones being leaves dropping and roots infiltrating into either buildings or existing drainage networks. Just be cautious of them. Water butts, another fairly cheap and accessible option, particularly useful where you can plug into an existing downpipe on your guttering, and fill up the water butt and use the water from them. Yeah, that they obviously have to have a stable and secure and level base to be safe. You wouldn't want large quantities of water falling onto anybody. Equally, they have to be used to get the full benefit. A water butt that sits full 100% of the time doesn't take any water out of the gutter. But if there is a reason for the kids to take that water out of there to use it for growing vegetables, hedgerows, whatever it may be. Again, it introduces different ways of appreciating water to those kids, and therefore the educational opportunities that come with that compound on top of the flood risk and water reuse opportunities as well. And probably the most sort of expensive option that I wanted to show you, but equally the most effective option is suds planters. So there's a few different suds planters that are on the market at the moment, and to be honest, there's quite a lot of different options on the market, and they sort of range in price. A lot of them will need professional installation, but equally, if you have a more persistent issue with, I don't know, drains being overwhelmed or that sort of thing, these can be really, really effective. The ones in the image on the right on the screen are produced by a company called Green Blue Urban. They're just called suds pods. They work by taking water directly from the downpipe, running that water through a series of chambers to really slow it down, and then discharging it at a much more controlled rate into the drain. So the idea is that a lot of capacity is created at the point that it's needed. So we're not just flushing a lot of water through a drain in flood conditions. It actually slows that down. There's also lots of plants that you can put in the top, and they can help draw some of that water off. These images were taken just after they'd been installed, so the plants look a little bit weedy and a bit small, but actually if you saw these same planters now, they've really bloomed up. The access to water is fantastic, so the plants love it. They look really nice. But like I say, they can be a bit more expensive, and they would require help with installation. But underneath all of those is in education and engagement, and we Reclaim the Rain has wanted to co-create with our communities, with our schools as much as possible, and take the students and the staff through that journey with us as much as possible. Obviously, with some of the bigger engineering projects, that isn't, it's just not, it's naturally not possible. But equally, for things like the suds pods, I wanted to use these images particularly. That it's really easy to get people excited and to get the kids involved in that and understanding the issues. What we have found particularly is a very good way of helping to sell that message was the connection between water and food. Again, I don't need to teach you guys to suck eggs, but that has been a really powerful sort of communication method for us to use, and has been really effective to get the kids engaged. What you can actually see in those images is we did a drawing competition for all of the schools that we were involved with, which was basically draw us something that helps to explain what Reclaim the Rain is trying to achieve. And we basically took the winners, blew them up massive, and put them on some sort of resilient outdoor board and just pinned them to the front of the suds pods. We got, I say hundreds, we actually got thousands of responses across our schools. The kids loved it, the students were really engaged, and the staff the staff were fantastic, and it's been a really popular way of helping to sell that message. That's everything from me. I just wanted to give it as brief a whistle stop tour through some of the things that we've been doing. I think I've run over a bit, haven't I? Apologies, Rebecca. But
that's okay. Thank you so much, Tom. That was really great. Was there any questions, or should we move on? Yeah, okay, let's move on to Richard. So thank you very much, Tom. I know you've got to go, so yeah, I'll see you soon in the office. But I'll hand over to Richard if you're okay to share your screen.
Okay, so hello everyone, I'm Richard. I work for Anglian Water as part of their education team. I just wanted to say a little project that fits in with Eco Schools projects, your climate action plans, and how you can use that to empower your pupils in your school. So we've been running a Eco Award open to all schools across the Anglian Water region, which includes Norfolk and Suffolk. And the idea was to try and give pupils a project that then they could do in their school and has some real world outcomes from it. And with a reward at the end of a nice certificate and a water butt, which links to what Tom was just saying then. So that was what we were doing, and the idea was that we'd start by launching it, and how the pupils lead that behaviour change. So they spread that message, they complete a water audit in school, and they ripple that message throughout the rest of their school and out into their wider community. So that could be through school newsletters or into their community through notice boards, parents' assemblies, social media. And that was the idea, that we'd get pupils to take responsibility of their water usage in their school. And the reason why we do it is because actually pupils know a school better than anybody else. And this is an example of, this is what sort of kick-started the idea. Was this is a small school in Norfolk, only 60 pupils in this rural school. And what that graph shows is that the school was using about 3.5, rising to about 4,000 litres a day, even when they weren't in school. And even there's a flat line at the top around about Christmas where they were still using that water. So they had a problem, they had a leak. Anglian Water had been out and had a look at it. Head teachers had been out. And yeah, that's what nobody could find the problem. So we asked some pupils to carry out the audit, and I went round with them, and they said the toilet was leaking, and the first drop is a fix of the toilet. And then from that, the caretaker fixed it that night. She went and got the £5 fix from B&Q. And then the pupils could then see from the graph that there still was some usage. And the second drop is when they sorted out the urinal in February half term. That school spent a few £100s on the fix, and it saved them about £5,500 over the year. So this is all wasted water, but actually can have a huge impact on not just the school's water use, but also bills for the school. So I just wanted to share, I'm just going to share a quick video of a different school to this one, who've taken the idea of the Eco Award and then really shown how you can spread that message throughout the rest of their school and the rest of their community, and show how far they can do it. So if I So we're here at St Lawrence School, and they've just taken part in our Eco Award. And what that involves is the students driving some changes in their school and at home.
We've been looking for leaks and in the taps, or where the bathrooms are, if there's leaks or not in the kitchen, because there's been lots of water usage.
Well, we were checking the tap, so somebody had a timer, I think it was 5 seconds, and then 2 people had a jug. Then they had to fill the jug up and see how much water is in the jug from 5 seconds.
We did a tissue trick with the toilet, so we took a bit of tissue and then we pressed it down the toilet if there was leaks.
So we figured out on Wednesdays it wasted the most water. And where our dinner ladies, that's where they do all their cleaning up on Wednesdays. We realised they just keep the tap running, and we told them to put water in and told them for the tap, so we just keep it in like a little jug and we wash it in there.
We got a certificate and also a letter from Anglian Water saying thank you for fixing the leaks.
We've had really great feedback from all families and from children. It's been fantastic. We need to embed that into them now, so it's just normal behaviour of them growing up, of that water conservation, getting them right at the early age of children, and then children taking it home to their parents. That's the change that we can do, the messages we can make.
We know that we've done our best to try save water everywhere.
So that just gives sort of an overview of what that Eco Award or Eco Award is all about, and actually how one school took that message. So yeah, they found that the dinner ladies, one particular dinner lady on a Wednesday didn't put the tap in, and that's why their water usage was higher on a Wednesday. And they had parents coming back in saying that their water bills had been reduced because of the impact to their sons and daughters going home and having that impact on their home usage as well. So really showing that the power of that message, and that message being taken home and into that wider community. So that then looks, and these are just a few examples of how schools have put up posters and how they've really enabled that behaviour change in their school. So we had 30 schools complete this last year, and we're hoping for more by the end of July this year. So you can see they've done from everything from fixing leaks to maintenance of putting their water butts out. They even reuse their water in the hot weather instead of pouring it down the drain. They have then spread that message, social media, booklets that go home, school newsletters. So really looked at how actually they in their individuals communities can spread that message. So my thing is for all the schools in Suffolk is anybody can sign up for this and just go to our website and follow the link on the Eco Award, and we will look to support you. So actually, literally this morning, we've secured funding so that at the end of doing this audit and completing your audit, if you find that there are taps which have particularly high flows, or you've got eco beaters, that dual flush toilets that are leaking, or you've got big old systems that need the old school hippos in there, then actually we have a fund now available for anybody where we supply water to actually fund those changes. So then you can actually apply, we'll send you all the kit out, and then schools can fit those water saving devices. So completing the loop. So pupils start the audit and then they can see the changes through the school's water usage being reduced, but also through actually ordering the devices and getting those fitted in their schools. So you can have this whole holistic approach in actually with solving the problems at the end, hopefully. So children using it, being detectives and finding out where those problems are, and actually having the power to make those changes, and actually the funding available for schools to actually then put those devices into their schools to make that difference and reduce their water usage. So if any schools would like to sign up, or we will support them online or through me, then we can get that done, and might be able to start it before the end of term, but certainly start as a project in September. And like Rebecca said, I'll be also at the Suffolk and Norfolk School Show and there to showcase some of the things we've been doing. So that's all from me. So Rebecca, if you want to pass on to the next person.
Thank you very much, Richard. That was brilliant. Yes, I think Mike is up next.
Okay, so my name's Mike Molina. I'm the Chair of Governors at Lakenheath Community Primary School, and my day job is I'm a chartered consulting engineer specialising in building services engineering and sustainable buildings. So this is my bread and butter, basically. And it's been really fortuitous for me because as Chair of Governors, we are... I have to pinch myself sometimes that it's actually happened to us, that we're going to be the first net zero school, operational school in Suffolk. In fact, from my research, it looks like we're the first in East Anglia. And we're due to open in 2026. And it's going to be a really interesting change because we're going from a Victorian school built in 1878. And here we are in 2026. It's quite interesting. So Louisa asked me to do a two-part thing here. First of all, to talk about our school, and then to talk about the water element. So we've got a unique challenge in our area. We're in the Brecks. For those that you know that, it's one of the driest parts of the UK. Also can be the coldest and the hottest as well. So it's quite a unique microclimate. So it's been quite a challenge to achieve that net zero in an extreme climate, but also we've got an extreme noise environment because our noisy neighbour is RAF Lakenheath, which of course is the largest US fighter based outside the United States in Western Europe. So that's quite interesting. So it's a very heavyweight building and it's very, very soundproofed. So that's also been quite an interesting challenge. We've also got an infrastructure challenge because we've got a load of houses being built and we've got very little road infrastructure around the school. So we're having to end up with a large number of temporary measures. And the most important thing for us as a school is keeping our community heritage as a village school and our adaptation to the new school site and keeping that culture. So that's a challenge, but it's obviously provided some fantastic opportunities. So the building design and operation, the fact that we're going to be net zero and with some great technologies. We've also, after a lot of lobbying and pushing, we've also got a water borehole that we're going to use for irrigation. And we're doing a lot on water conservation, which I'll talk a bit more from a professional point of view later. And we're very much geared to having a living lab, an educational resource to inspire those engineers and scientists of the future. So very much into STEM. And the whole point of this project as well is because we're a community school, we're going to be very much a community resource. So this is a quick snapshot, and this really is a whistle-stop tour of the Brex and the challenges. So it's a real contrast because we're right on the edge of the Fens, which of course is one of the wettest, and here we are on the sandy Brex, which is one of the driest. So that makes it quite interesting. And I would recommend, if any of you don't know the Brex, come to the Brex because it's an amazing centre for biodiversity. I think we've got 26% unique species in this area. So from that point of view, it's pretty incredible. Okay. So in terms of the big picture, why do we need a new school? So Lakenheath, controversially for some and not for others, depending on where you are and what your perspective is, but we are going to increase significantly with a growth of 36% over the next decade in terms of our existing housing. So 720 houses being built and approximately 1,700 people coming from that, which is why obviously we need a larger school. So these are our noisy neighbours, quite a lot of them. This isn't a military secret or anything. You can find this on the internet. So F-35s are the latest jets, these things here. And the F-15s have been with us for quite some years. So there's over 100 of those. And we've had extensive acoustic surveys and noise measurements. And I could do a whole seminar just on that. But that's just to sort of give you an idea of the challenges there. So at the heart of our building is some fantastic building services engineering. So again, part of net zero, we've got 58 kilowatts of solar PV that is on the roof. Our heating is going to be derived from ground source heat pumps. So we have 21 50-meter boreholes that have been drilled to provide the ground source heat pumps. And we've got 40 kilowatts of modular battery storage so that we can buffer the solar and potentially use night rate electricity because it's a lot cheaper to use, especially in the winter in the day. And we've got special ventilation. We've got a lot of heat recovery systems because we're a sealed building, because of the noise. And that obviously is very good because it minimizes the energy loss. So again, a whole seminar just on the plant room another time for that one. This is a picture of the drilling rig that we had on site, drilling the boreholes, and this is where it came in to a great opportunity to drill a water borehole, which we had to lobby for quite extensively, but we got it because I said at the time, look, we've got a drilling rig on site. It's mad not to have the borehole because we've got a fairly shallow water table. And astonishingly, I didn't realize this, that we're allowed to draw 20,000 litres a day without an abstraction license from the Environment Agency. We're going to use nothing like that, but we will use it significantly to irrigate our pitches, do drip irrigation, micro irrigation on the planting, which we've got a lot of around the new site. Okay, so this is the building, an aerial shot, a drone shot. That was taken in January, so things have moved on a bit, but you can see the structure of the building is there. As we've now got the PV on the roof. I must update this slide actually. And you can see we've got extensive grounds, and we're going to have an ecology area here, which is great because we've already got an existing forest school at our old site. Obviously the pitches haven't established yet, but the grass is growing. You can just about see it coming through there. But bearing in mind what I said about the driest part of Britain in East Anglia, this part here in the Brecks, we're going to need a lot of irrigation to keep those pitches, because at the present school, they are basically in the summer parched landscapes. So that's the situation there. We've been doing a lot of STEM activities with the children. The whole buy-in of this whole project has been geared to the children. Coming to site when safe, obviously, and getting the contractors and the building contractors to come into school to do a lot of STEM activities. And it's been fantastic. We've got 2 more coming up next week. So we want to develop that as a sort of standing item for the future, try and get as much as that as possible. Bearing in mind that we're trying to integrate this in the curriculum, we thought, well, how can we explain a borehole and the heat pumps to the children? So we came up with a couple of graphics that illustrate not only what's under the ground in terms of the geology and the history, the natural history, but also how do we explain the 150-meter boreholes. And the best way we found was using the equivalent of 7.5 Lakenheath church towers stacked on top of each other, which the children could relate to. And also the fact that a number of children have been to London on a school trip to see the Houses of Parliament, etc. So we said, well, look at this. This is how deep they go in relation to, say, Big Ben. We've also created something called a Pingo. And I was just interested to know if how many of you have actually heard of that, which is a Brecks feature, which is a fossil pond left over from the Ice Age. So we're recreating one of those, and we're trying to do that as part of the Brecks heritage and the natural history element to that as well. So now I'm going to turn to part 2 of the presentation, which is what obviously this seminar's about, which is the sustainable water management. So this has been very much at the heart of my career for 44 years now in building services engineering. So I've tried a few of these. So I run my own consultancy now, and I've authored a book called Delivering Sustainable Buildings, which was published in 2012 now. So it's a bit ahead of the time in a sense. And I concentrated a whole chapter on water, because one of the things that we've noticed in building services as a profession is that water is often forgotten about, and the concentration is on energy. But to me, it's the same, and it's all interlinked. So how do we look at this? So I've described it as a Cinderella service in the past, and we've got to sort of make this link with reducing carbon, looking at sustainability and how we do that. And it's very, very simple, very easy to go the wrong way. So my whole career has been based on what I call the energy hierarchy. And now I've also applied this to the water hierarchy. So it was quite interesting hearing stuff about the SUDS, Sustainable Urban Drainage, which is obviously being put in so many projects these days. But also, of course, the rainwater harvesting. Now, from my point of view, rainwater harvesting is a good thing, but it shouldn't be the first thing, because it's quite expensive and it doesn't deliver as much water as you think. So we have to be realistic. So I'm approaching this from an engineering point of view, from a school governor's point of view, and from a cost point of view. So what we need to do first is reduce the need for water in the first place. So that requires good maintenance, as Tom mentioned, and as Richard mentioned in his case study, the expenditure of £300 to save £5,000. Well, absolutely spot on. And that is really important. And also getting people to understand just how much energy is used in moving water about. So the UK water industry consumes roughly 3% of the total national electricity. And people don't really realize that, because pumping water and sewage, because it's quite a dense medium, heavy medium, it requires a lot of energy. So the pumping and processing is phenomenal. So that's why we need to reduce it. Not only are you saving water, but you're also saving a lot of electricity and power in moving water around. And then second in this hierarchy is to use water efficiently. So implementing smart controls, automated technologies, again, what Richard was talking about in his case study. And then once you've done all that, then you start looking at rainwater harvesting. So I've seen a lot of projects where people want that sort of demonstration. Now you've got a trade-off between education and the cost and doing what is realistic. So I think it's really important, because I think this is missed. And that water hierarchy needs to be adopted, I think, as a standard. Engineering efficiency in terms of how you look at energy use, water use is really important. So here's some examples. So it was already mentioned about the washrooms, the infrared controls, you know, using taps that can't be left on, so percussion taps. A lot of people have gone down the route of using infrared. Not so great, because they sometimes go wrong, they get gummed up. So percussion taps are probably your best bet for that. Really important is ground irrigation. So even that we've got water borehole, we're not going to waste our water. We're going to have irrigation timers, and they're really important. And I see this all the time with farmers as well. For convenience, people water it right in the midday. You get maximum evaporation. You're not getting efficient use of water. So it's really important. They're very low cost to use inline timers or specialist timers that you can turn the water on at night, because that's the best time to irrigate. And the most important thing as well is, where's your water going and how much are you using? So it's no good just having one smart meter or 1 meter. Try and subdivide it, put inline meters so that you can find out exactly where that water is being used. And it's quite a cost-effective thing to do. So ultimately, what's it all about in terms of how do we convey this to people that are not technical, to building managers, for example? So as Tom said in his earlier presentation, maintenance is absolutely key, and it's often sacrificed, and it's a false economy. So we have to entertain that idea of a proactive maintenance regime. It really is a false economy if you don't do that. Making sure that students and pupils understand this issue, using that opportunity to integrate into the curriculum is really important. And driving those behavioural changes. It's no good just having technology. There's a human factor, and we've got to have that woven into the whole process. And finally, how do you compare this? So I would say, using an analogy, just as a car requires a servicing and a well-tuned engine, obviously it's fossil fuel car, but in terms of electric as well, it needs maintenance. Using, well, obviously, again, electric, it's automatic, but for most people still have petrol cars or diesel cars. You have to use your gears correctly. So the same applies to how you look at buildings with regards to energy, water, the whole thing. So we have to sort of get that across. And I still see so many mistakes being made. So that's it. Any questions? Be happy to talk them over, and thanks very much.
Thank you, Mike. Brilliant. Yeah, it sounds really exciting what's happening at Lakenheath. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to move, just because we're running a little bit over, I'm going to move straight on to Tess.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. My name's Tess, and I work with the Ministry of Eco-Education. We're a charity. We have a network of coordinators like me dotted all over the country. And so we can offer all the teachers in this country a free website. Our job is to empower teachers and make teachers' jobs easier for them, helping them to weave sustainability through every subject in their curriculum. And we've put all the best free resources on our website for teachers to access. And we also go into schools and help with teacher training, and we do lots and lots of other things. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to introduce you to some of the activities and resources on our website to do with water. So we live on a blue planet, and even though lots and lots of primary school and secondary school classrooms have one of these in it, when I go into schools working with students, I find that quite often there are lots and lots of gaps in students' understanding of how precious and how valuable all of our water is, and all the animals and plants that live in it. But today I'm just going to focus on fresh water and how incredibly precious and valuable our freshwater ecosystems are. So through our curriculum, what we hope and what we aim for is that young people will gain the awareness, the education, they'll have those conversations with their trusted adults and teachers and amongst themselves, and that they will learn and embed behaviours within themselves, within their school culture. And we've had some nice examples today of really positive behaviours and understanding and learning around how precious water is, but also for that message to sort of go beyond school and into the culture of people's homes as well. So through our curriculum, we teach a love of rivers and oceans and the water that we can see, but also it's important for young people to understand the water use of the invisible water or the embedded water in everything that they buy, they wear, they eat and they use. So through our curriculum, what happens is that water awareness, water literacy becomes a way of being. And through schools having a culture of water awareness and the love of water and understanding of how important it is to our lives, that we can sort of prepare young people for a more sustainable future. So if I think about my own learning about water journey, this is one of the things that struck me most when I was learning about water. So I want you to imagine for a moment that what you can see in front of you, that this is all the water in the whole world. Now, 97% of this water cannot be used for animals or plants or humans because it's salty. Of the 3% of water that is left, 3% of this is fresh water that we can use. So I would like to just imagine that this is a representation of the 3% of the fresh water that is left on our planet for us to use. And of that, 2/3 of this small amount is locked up in snow and ice. So I'm going to tip that back. And of this 1/3 that's left, the majority, or quite a lot of that, is locked up in groundwater. We've just been hearing about boreholes. And groundwater, we can access it, but it's not as easy to access as rivers, lakes, ponds, and canals. So of this, about 1% of this water is easy for us to access through rivers, lakes, ponds, and canals. And when you do this activity with children and with adults, it can bring home the enormous preciousness of our freshwater ecosystems. And young people all are taught at school about the water cycle. And the problem is, or the challenge is what we're doing is we're using the water that we have available to us so much faster than the water cycle is naturally replenishing, because our water needs have increased exponentially in recent times. Okay, so I'm going to show you our website now. I'm just going to share my screen and just give you a little glimpse of our website. Everyone in the school has free logins to our website. So I'm just checking, can you see my screen there?
Yep, I can see it.
Right, so Ministry of Eco-Education, this is our website. We're a collaboration of teachers and environmentalists working together to place sustainability at the heart of education. Everyone in the country's got free logins. So I'm going to go to our framework. This is how we sort of frame our curriculum. And you'll see we have 7 sort of themes there. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see water. So we want children to learn that extreme weather events are making water more scarce, more unpredictable, and that water is polluted. So if you look at our framework, and I'm not expecting you to read all of this, I'm just sort of giving you a little glance, you'll see that we have some big questions. There's our first one. Do we live on a blue planet? And you can see key stages, lesson plans, and there's another big question. How much water is there? And underneath each question, there's a load of activities. And each one of those activities leads to a video. There are lots and lots of videos, and all of our sources for our videos are of excellent, good quality data from partners such as NASA, the Met Office, the Geographical Society, the Natural History Museum. So these are the kind of places that we get our resources from. We've picked all the best resources from the internet and put them in one place for teachers there. So the kind of learning journey goes, ask a big question, have some videos. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit more for you can see some sort of links to various different organizations. Click on a link, share the videos with young people, have a big discussion, and then each one of our questions has an outcome. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Back to me, and I'm just going to share a few of those big questions with you. So underneath water, some of the questions are, will we run out of water? This is obviously for older children. What's in the water? How can we protect the ocean? So looking at salt water there. Why is all the ice disappearing? Are urban waterways important? Why are our rivers polluted? Just 2 more. Do people in other countries matter? So some of the water questions that we ask sort of linked towards social justice and a sort of global view of water. Why does sewage end up in the rivers? Particularly topical one, considering the recent dirty business or dirty water documentary that came out. So underneath each one of those questions, there's a load of resources and activities for students to do with their teachers. And then each one of them leads to an outcome. So the outcomes tend to be, they're often videos, they're often sort of related to sort of drama and discussion and debate. Sometimes they might be a school trip out to a river or a lake, or they might be about connecting with the local river environmentalist group. So working sort of beyond the school, further out into the community. And then each outcome has an audience in mind. So children are encouraged to think about who they can influence and how they can spread the messages of what they've learned beyond the school and into the community, which we also heard one of our previous speakers talking about. So I'm just going to finish with a little story of that whole sort of learning journey. So I'm picking some of our resources and activities that are suitable for a nursery or early years. Our curriculum goes from nursery all the way up to Key Stage 3 at the moment. So I'm starting right at the beginning with those sort of early building blocks of creating positive attitudes and a positive relationship with water in really, really young people, which we hope will lead to, you know, a lifelong love of and appreciation of water. So the first question, it's going to have 3 questions, this learning journey. So the first question is the earth blue? And at first, students would watch a David Attenborough video about Blue Planet. They would look at the globe in the classroom. They'd have a small world water tray with like little animals in it and shells and bits of seaweed. And they would lots and lots of conversation and language and vocabulary about why our planet is blue. Second question, which might be the next day or a few days later, what shouldn't be in the water? So then the water tray could be chopped up, and plastic could be added, and bits of litter and litter pickers and nets. So the children come in and they see all this litter in the water, and then that inspires lots and lots of conversations. The litter can be picked out, maybe it can be recycled or reused. And then the last question is, how can we save water? So underneath that question, there's a video about top 10 tips for saving water. And those can be adopted by the children in the school and the community. And then the last thing is that in thinking about how to save water, the water in that water tray on Friday afternoon, when it's been played with and played with and played with, the children get to scoop it out with little plastic buckets and watering cans, and they get to carry it into the outdoor area or the indoor area and water the plants, water the trees, and water the flower beds. So I hope you can see from that illustration that they have learned lots of knowledge and understanding. They've had lots of conversations about water, and they are practicing appreciating how precious and how valuable that fresh water is. And then little videos could be made, put on Dojo, sent out to the parents, or maybe a little flyer of what the children have learnt could be shared with parents and shared with the community. Yeah, so that is a little dip into the Ministry of Education's water curriculum, and everyone has free access. So if you want to know how to get online, how to get access, you can just go on the website and email us, and we'll send you logins. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you very much, Tess. That was great, and yeah, there's lots more to look at on your website, not just water related. Yeah, so please do check it out, especially if you're looking at any of the other topics that were shown up on screen. So Tess is hanging around, and we'll go into breakout rooms, but I just wanted to share some networking questions before I stop the recording, just for anyone who does want to have a little think about water as a topic. So what does sustainable water use currently look like in your school, and where do you see the biggest opportunities or risks? Because we've obviously talked about flooding, and we've talked about water conservation. So just thinking about your setting, how is it relevant for you? What low cost or quick win water initiatives feel most achievable in your setting? So we've talked about massive projects, you know, huge infrastructure changes, but also curriculum changes, and then sort of quick win operational things like SUDS. So yeah, what do you think you can implement? How could water sustainability be meaningfully embedded into teaching and learning across different subjects or age groups in your school? And like Tessa just mentioned, Ministry of Eco-Education have some excellent ideas there. What role do leadership, governors and student voice play in driving water sustainability in your school, and how could this be strengthened? Could your eco school group drive that kind of action, or do you have a governor with the type of expertise that Mike brings to Lakenheath? You know, where can you leverage that support? And what ideas, questions or partnerships would you like to take forward after today to support your school's water sustainability journey?